Good evening. I hope things are going well for you today. We're doing a sit and talk because it's raining, and that's good. But I tried to do it, and it just wasn't working. So the temperature here is 62 degrees, although I'm indoors, and the rain has come and gone and come again, and right now it's raining. The humidity is at 78%. You'd expect it to be high. And the wind, when you're outside, is 5.7 miles an hour. There are several decisions and things happening today, so let me get into a couple of the ones that strike me as important. First of all, we had a case involving the first religious wannabe public school was stopped by the Supreme Court by a vote of 4-4, a draw. And one justice, Associate Justice Barrett, she recused herself, did not participate because part of the team of advocates was drawn from her old school, Notre Dame. How she would have voted, I don't know. And we don't know who voted the first or second for because it's not indicated. It's just indicated that we don't have a decision. I think that we should have the names of the justices so that we could, in our mind, understand what direction the court is taking. I don't see an objection that fits to knowing that information. The principle is the separation of church and state, whether or not we're establishing a religion in a public school. And the answer by their silence, if you will, is no, I don't think you can do that. The law of the case now, it seems to me, presents a certain precedent that I favor, which is don't bring your religion to a charter school. And which religion should you be able to bring? And, all the old questions that involve separation of church and state. The line was drawn at charter schools, including religious teaching. I think that's the best way to put it. That there's an aspect of this charter school which is named after a saint, Saint Isidora, and you have to agree to certain principles to participate in the school. Now, I think that here's the bottom line. It basically says religious schools can't be a public school, and a public school can't be a religious school. That's pretty obvious, don't you think? Now, my analysis goes something like this. I think it is more likely that the three so-called liberal associate justices agreed with Roberts, the Chief Justice. And I think that's the case because in an earlier question about separation of church and state, Roberts was comfortable with public funding for charter schools. But this is a leap too far for him, I think, since he hasn't said we don't know that that's the case. It's not hard for us to believe that Thomas and the other conservatives would compose the four. But it's kind of interesting that what would Barrett do in a case in which he didn't think she had a conflict? I give her a plus for that. We've seen her with Roberts now a couple of times, and we've seen her here take a recusal when Thomas won't. And so I think that that's important about the legacy of the court. So I think this is something worth celebrating. Something else not so worthwhile for praise is what's happening to Harvard. Christie fashion plate dog killer Noem, our Homeland Security Secretary, has said to Harvard that you can't have any international students there anymore. That's over, not happening. We consider it important to the security that, that you not have that opportunity. And it feels to me like something Senator McCarthy would be comfortable with in his methods involving the communist fears, if you will. Now, Harvard allows, is the charge, anti-American, pro-terrorist foreigners to harass and to physically assault individuals and more. That's what she says. And so two things happen. if one accepts this proposition. There'll be no new students, no new international students, and those that are there must leave by a certain time frame. They're going to, that is Noam and company, are going to threaten every other school, and we say this is the land of the free and the home of the brave. It's increasingly not looking so free, and it's looking pretty cowardly in terms of the resistance to these kinds of what the university has called unlawful interventions. Intervention is my word, but they did call it unlawful, the president of Harvard. So what are we to expect from these people? Where is the expression of the argument against what they're doing? I assume a court will be invoked shortly, and they're going to speak about this. Now, Noam didn't start with this. She wanted the confidential student records of those who were international students. And as I understand it, Harvard said, no, pound sand, we're not giving you that. So there's that. There's a very sad story that doesn't fit in any component, but I think it goes to the emotions that we have on a daily basis of our disordered society. A Jewish couple, and it's important that they are Jewish, 26 and 30, about to be fiancéed. They were shot dead Wednesday. Why? Because they were Jewish. They're humanitarians. In fact, they had just attended something to that effect. They're killed by an anti-Semitic assassin, and he answered why, and it was that he didn't approve of what was going on in Gaza. And so these two innocents pay for his perception that killing them will have any effect at all on the war. This is the problem you have when, there are accusations of war crimes. You don't adequately deal with it on both sides of this terrible war that's going on. And you don't bring to bear code and leadership and so forth to a situation to improve upon it. And then people just sit there with their thoughts and they just get wrapped around an axle, and finally their reaction is to strike out and kill strangers. According to one report, his arm was extended toward the person on the ground who'd been shot and shot again. So and they tried to crawl away. Anyhow, it's a disastrous scene, and I think it's worth saying because it makes real what we're up against in a nation without laws, involving highly emotional material, perceived injustices, unnecessary loss of life. And when the contrast is with our young again, why is it always that way? That we have the most emotional, sensitive thing that as humans we identify with and care with. A person younger than us should not be killed and should not die. Putting aside wars, I'm talking about just domestically, something like this assassination. Okay, so that's my thinking about that. Briefly, I should say, Jerry Connelly is a man I've known a long time. He just died of cancer at 75 a few days ago. When I ran for Congress, Jerry helped me back in 1984. I believe he was, I don't know exactly what he was doing at the time. But I do know in the campaign, he was intense and it was hands-on and he knew a great deal. And he was a great resource when we're talking about international issues. But all of that is kind of the stuff that doesn't make the man or woman worthy of remembrance. I don't mean to diminish what he did. He had such a generous spirit. He had such a love of worthy wars, if you will. The Irish say, is this a private fight or can anybody weigh in? Well, most of his fights were public fights. And he did well. And I can't think of a time when his courage and sensitivity failed him. And so it's a great loss. we sort of pass like a breeze at some time in our life. It'll happen to me, it'll happen to you. But we should all grieve, certainly the best of us who failed, and Jerry was one of the best. In another category, Jake Tapper has written a book basically burning the shit out of former President Biden, and I don't think you should buy his book. Don't buy his book. It's bullshit. It is in this sense. You write about a man who's withdrawn from public life, and now you're going to try to say that he concealed an illness that is bringing him closer to death, and you want to say perhaps this and other things were known earlier. Well, perhaps. But as some have pointed out, Reagan, as president, had problems with mental capacity. And JFK, my hero, had to take certain medications and so forth, though he appeared vigorous because of the problems he had. And you know, it goes on. If we want a certain level of seniority, we're going to be picking people who have limitations, physical, psychological, emotional. And yes, it would be good to always work that into the election. In Biden's case, he was there and we saw him. That's how he left office. I mean, you couldn't keep that secret. It appeared to me that he had nerve problems in his feet because of the way he walked. I don't know that. Some people made fun of it. That's the other problem. Ageism is an acceptable discrimination in America. The irony of that is we're all going in that direction. You're making fun of yourself 10 years from now when you make fun of a person who's older. Anyhow, leave off Biden. Don't be an asshole. Let the book sell itself. Don't go around flagging it, because the way he was chased out of the race was terrible and unfriendly and inhumane. And now to go after the family, in essence, fulfilling what maybe Trump would get a kick out of. Oh, great, you can have it both ways. I can say I'm sorry that he's dead, and we can beat the shit out of him as he, well, not dead, but suffering a disease that could take him, I guess, at any time. And I hope that he finds a way to be peaceful and to be as active as his condition allows him. We have also, while we're talking about inhumane, let's talk for a minute about Speaker Johnson. He has succeeded at forcing a work requirement for the ill that if they don't satisfy, they won't be covered by Medicaid. And so that's it, And he says he prayed for this, Who did he pray to? Satan? What is it with these people? What is wrong with them? Hopefully the Senate will extract the cancerous tumors from this bill that is a beautiful bill. Yeah, if you're a vengeful son of a bitch, but it's not otherwise. And that's the problem with America. Where is the fight in the America for the freedoms we claim are so important? We have bragged in all our writings and our tradition about how we're on the right side of this. Last night I was with this character who's in charge of seemingly compromising anybody who's a migrant, and very, thick is the best I can say about him. Anyhow, I'm not going to go into that. I talked to it yesterday on the air, and then in a brief late sit and talk or stand and talk. I don't remember what I did. So that's what we have today. We have to keep having access in an understandable way to what's happening so that we can comment it on a way that makes sense. Public schools shouldn't be religious. You'd think that's simple, right? I think it is. We can't have people doing what McCarthy did years ago by blowing up someone, accusing them of things, proving nothing, to sidelight them in politics, or because at one point they opposed you and now you're in a position to have a foghorn bigger than anybody else in the neighborhood that you can drown them out. with your views, lies usually, about people, compromising their entire existence just because they disagree with you. Not so difficulty. How about a certain kind of conduct of yourself? Let's stop this anti-Semitism. I know it's bred by Trump. When in his life, before this administration, has he ever been anything but anti-Semitic? So now he tries to have it both ways. You know, he take care of Bibi, and Bibi takes care of me, and I get to have the funds, and I can still be discriminating in my policies. Jake Tapper, I've always enjoyed him, but not this book. You got to make a living, sure, I know that, but there's something wrong about your dedication to this book, I think. To write about somebody who didn't want the public to know about their health condition, which is in the most extreme statement, that's what they're saying. When he has gotten this drastic medical report, it's just not acceptable. And when the Hill is prepared to basically create older, ill persons, unless they can work, to having no medical attention, so what? They'll die sooner. And that money saving, you go over here and you give it to people who are already very wealthy, who don't need a break in their taxes. There's a place in hell for these people, there really is. But that gives me no encouragement because A, I don't believe in hell, but also I don't believe any human on this planet is independent of every other human, and that to do this to anyone is to say you should be banished from the community, of politicians at least, if this is your view of America, because it's not my view, and it's not the view of those people who are ill, and it's not the view of people who may become ill. What is wrong with these people? So if this is what you get from your prayers, then obviously you're into satanic rituals, not Christian, not Jewish, not Buddhist, not any kind of thinking or thought that embraces society and the people all around us. So that's what I got. I hope you found this interesting, and I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Okay, and I hope to be on the road, but we do need the rain. Bye-bye.